Thank you for joining the Miami Jewish Film Festival, one of the world's largest and oldest cultural events. I'm excited to have Grégory Monro with us to talk about his film, Kubrick by Kubrick. As a huge lifelong admirer of Stanley Kubrick, this is a real treat. Thank you, Grégory, so much for being here and finding the time to talk to us about your amazing film. And
thank you very much.
I'm going to kick off the first question. What drew you to make this film?
Well, I've been a huge Stanley Kubrick fan for years, and I've been making documentaries for a few years now, and I always wanted to do something on Stanley Kubrick. But as you may know, there's been a lot of films already done on Stanley Kubrick. So I had to think a lot about, okay, what would be the a new way of making a film around Stanley Kubrick, or doing something that hasn't been done before. And the only thing that struck was the interviews he gave to Michel Simon, a French film critic, who interviewed him about, I think, 4 times, from Clockwork Orange, I would say, until Full Metal Jacket. And you know, I knew these interviews. I read the book because they were transcribed in a book by Michel Simon, who was translated in hundreds of languages all around the world. And these interviews were saved by Michel Simon, so I could actually access them and listen to them. And you know, it was an evidence for me that this is a treasure. It's a real treasure to listen to the master. And I think that could be the only way to make my film on Stanley Kubrick is you know, to give him the opportunity to express himself with his own voice. So it's called Kubrick by Kubrick, but it's rather a conversation, I would say, with Stanley Kubrick. And to me, it was the only way to do it. So we from there on, we worked on it for I would say about two and a half years. It's a very, very, very long process for a documentary because we had to clear a lot of things, ask permission to everyone, and we did it really like that. And so it was a tremendous piece of work, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to do that film really for people, not only people who know Kubrick, but people who might don't know him as well. I think it's maybe easier for people who know a little on Stanley Kubrick, but still, you know, the film is built on archives. I mean, it's very, very rare for a documentary to do it that way, you know, because usually you have interviews, talking heads, or you have a voiceover, but that film has been done entirely with archives, either audio archives or the film archives. So I had to build a narrative with all the archives I had, because I didn't added anything new. I mean, from my part. So, well, that's it.
Well, that does bring me to a question. So I've heard Michael Simon's interviews, and there's been people who have chopped out all of Michael's parts on audio. If you look online, you know, they're just looking for the Kubrick parts. But it's fascinating to hear his questions too. But I know there's hours of this. So what was your process to try to figure out what parts to use? What, for example, were you looking for particular pieces of Kubrick, or tell us about your process of how you determine what you were going to use?
Well, first I listened. There's about 6 hours interviews, and you know, you're not allowed to do a 6-hour film, and for a lot of reasons. So I had to choose parts of it. But first I had to have in mind, okay, what can I do with that? Because these are 4 major interviews and 4 major films. He doesn't talk about a few of other of his films, so I could do that. So I had to find a way to structure the movie with that, and I had to have in mind, something and an objective. And my objective was not only Stanley Kubrick, the director, the filmmaker, but also Stanley Kubrick, the man. So I was both interested in these interviews. He talks a lot about his. I mean, he doesn't talk a lot about, but while he is speaking about his movies, he speaks about something else, very like his viewpoint on man and on humanity. And that's very important, I think, to understand Stanley Kubrick. And what really interested me most is his viewpoint, I would say, on the world, and the world in which he was living at the time, and on his perception of that, and how it reflected in his work and on his films as well. So I had these both objectives. First, talking about, okay, how was he thinking of his movies? What was the process for him as a filmmaker? And then what was the meaning? That's what was the most difficult part, because Kubrick didn't like to analyze himself, but still he does it. He does it. And so what was the meaning of each of his movies, or the most important of his movies, and how could I build something logical, not chronological. It's not chronological at all. It's not a biography. It's not a filmography. That documentary is not. It's not doing that. It's really trying to capture the thoughts of a man and a filmmaker on his craft and on human being. So I really kept that in mind to build the film with the audio tapes, and I really listened carefully. And each time I just caught something interesting, either in the filmmaking part or either in the, I would say, the analytic part. Well, I just separate them, and I built it like that. It took a lot of time, because I had to make choices. I couldn't put everything in the movies. You never do that. So it's very difficult with Stanley Kubrick, especially with Stanley Kubrick, because his films were complex. So you have to stay simple in the complexity.
Well, I got to say, I know it's about 75 minutes, but I could have watched easily 2 hours of it.
I know. That's my only regret. I get that a lot. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's already finished." I know. It's so difficult to make documentaries. People are not, maybe not you, but the audience, the basic audience, they're not really well aware of how it works. We work with very low budgets, and we have to find ideas. The movie clips are tremendously expensive, because we didn't use fair use. We really paid for that. We really wanted to be, really. So we had to make choices. It's very, very tough. So yeah, I love to. I would have loved to do a 2-hour long movie. It's possible, but So it's a little bit frustrating, I know, for me as well. But it's better than nothing.
Oh, well, I think this will be very popular, and eventually, if you have the time and the gumption to do a longer cut, people like us could just eat that up. I've seen a number of documentaries on Stanley Kubrick, and I'm going, I know they left some things out, and I understand the constraints when you're making a film, plus possibly your distributors looking for a certain time length for distribution. So there's a lot of things to go into it, and I think you did a great job with the choices you had and trying to determine what you're going to use, because I know that can be very challenging with so much material to choose from. Let's talk a little bit about the opening credits. The audience has seen this, and it's starting on the most amazing film that Kubrick knows, or one of the ones that most people have seen at least once or twice, amongst his body of work, which is 2001. So your credits seem to be informed by the font that he's using, that very narrow Arial font, and so you're paying homage to that. And then we see the hotel room. I don't know what else to call it. You know, that we that's the ending of 2001 ends up in this other dimension or so. A lot of people call it the hotel room, for lack of something better to call it. You know, where Dave Bowman spends his last days. How did you make that? I'm just curious. I've seen models of that, but you seem like you're really right there. So I'm curious, is it a model, CGI, a combination? Can you tell us more about that?
It's a model. Actually, we rebuilt the room, almost as big as the original one. So it was an incredible work, you know. It was very exciting, and I was very cautious with that because I knew that if we weren't perfect in the details, it wouldn't match, and it matched. I had a really fictional crew who worked on that. A lot of people worked on that to build the room again, and but it's not. I haven't done it just to be pretty. I really did it because I really believe that I had to find a place to give Stanley Kubrick his words. I had to find something logical with his thoughts, and the 2000 rooms made that, because the 2001 room to me symbolizes a lot of secrets, mysteries, and also I wanted to recreate as if we were in Stanley Kubrick's mind, as if you were in his mind, in his thoughts, you know, in that other dimension, because there's a lot of mystery there, not only for that room, the meaning of that room, but the meaning of what was in his thoughts. So that's the reason why I decided to set up the film in that room and play with the words, tapes, and the props and everything that converge into that room.
So the posters that we see from the films, are they miniature posters, or is that a mix of CGI and the model?
No. The posters were CGI, but that's the only thing. Everything else is real. It has been built. So so yeah, I know it's exciting, but everything is real. Yeah.
How big's the model?
It was 1/3. We had two kind of models. We had 1/3 of the room, so it still was like 3 meters on 2 and something meters, or 3 by 3, I think. And we had a part of the room, a corner on it was the real scale, because I had to play with the televisions and everything, and the props. So it had to match also the both rooms, or part of the rooms had to match. So we it was very big actually. So it was pretty amazing.
And it lives, the model, where does it live now?
No, unfortunately not the walls. We had to not destroy it, but I don't know where it is actually, because we shot in Poland. Because it's we had a Polish co-producer, so everything was shot and built over there, and all the walls and everything stayed over there. But the props of the rooms, sorry, I mean they are in France, or I have a few, I have a few of them at my place. I wanted to save that, so all the props are saved. I would say so, but maybe one day we will build it again, maybe for an exhibition. Probably because it's really interesting to see that. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I have seen it on Kubrick exhibits. There's a sort of a model like that, like an open model that might be about 6 feet wide. I have some pictures of it from Kubrick exhibits I visited. So when I saw this, I thought maybe they borrowed that model, but now that I've heard it, you've rebuilt the model to yourself.
Yeah, we rebuilt it. Actually, I think we asked them if it was possible to shoot 1 or 2 day shooting in the museum, and to shoot props and everything, but it wasn't accessible. And the room, I think they had a very small scale of the room, so it couldn't match with my idea, because we had a big camera, you know, with the crane and everything, craning inside the room, so it had to be really bigger. So the only way was to build it again.
Mm, it's amazing. Tell us a little bit about, so you have all this material that you're using, and did you, during the montaging, did you find yourself rearranging it quite frequently, or did it flow to you? Did you have a sense of channeling Kubrick and getting the flow early on?
Uh, no, well, some it depends on the sequences, but it was very well written before. I
Hmm.
really wrote everything, every single part of the structure. It was structured like that before. The only thing that might have changed, I think, are details, maybe stuff that Kubrick said, and I decided not to put it in the movie because it was too much, or it was too complicated to put some, I would say, some images on it. But the when I shot the room, the editing of the movie was already there, but not the sequences and the shots of the room. So I knew what I needed. So when I shot the room, I knew exactly what to shoot to put it then into my black holes, into the editing to match and to make links with all the narrative. So it was pretty well prepared, but I had a long preparation first by writing it, and then editing it with the room first, because we only had, I think we had 3 days of shooting, but that's good anyway. But it was we had a big crew, we had the crane and everything, so I had to be very specific on what I needed really exactly, because otherwise I could have done like hours and hours and hours of shooting in there because it was so exciting. So I really shot what really I needed to insert the movie.
Can you tell me, you're basically listening to Kubrick for hours and hours and hours, living with him in some respects.
Yeah.
Now, you knew a lot about him, obviously, before that. You're a fan, and this is what drew you to the material. But sitting around with that much intensity and focusing on it, especially for a piece of work that you're doing, you're distilling it. Tell us more about what you've learned from him. Did you learn anything new? Was there something of revelation during the process?
Not really, because I read the book before, or even though there were a lot of very rare Kubrick's words in the audio tapes that weren't transcribed, and that they are included in the movie. There's a few parts of it that actually that he for example he gave an interview to Michel Simon on Full Metal Jacket, and that Full Metal Jacket interview wasn't included in Michel Simon's book.
Hmm.
So what you hear about Kubrick talking about Full Metal Jacket is no one ever heard it before. So that was amazing. Probably because Kubrick didn't want Michel Simon to use it at the time. He preferred not. Probably, I guess, because we weren't very far again from the war, the Vietnam War. I mean, and probably he didn't felt comfortable with saying stuff on politics, government, and everything. He talks about that a lot. So probably. So I didn't learn. I learned. It's not that I learned something. I learned. I had the perception of a man that I really I was surprised. The first time I heard his voice, as I guess a lot of people is surprised when they listen to Kubrick as well, because it doesn't match. It doesn't match with all what was said on Kubrick. It doesn't match with his legend, I would say. It doesn't match with his pictures. When you see him, when you see pictures of Stanley Kubrick, you say, "Oh, he seemed, yeah, he didn't seem very sympathetic, or he seemed tough, or you read so much on him, but when you listen to him, you say, hey, okay, that's Kubrick. Well, that guy is a casual guy. He speaks very very softly. He's almost sometimes shy. It looks like, you know, it could have been your friend speaking to a friend. He's very humble too. So that's what really surprised me most, more than learning stuff. I mean, on Stanley Kubrick, because you know how, as yourself, I read and watched so many things on him. So, but I was more excited when he mentioned uh, uh, the problems of the world, you know, the war, the violence, because it's incredible. It could have been made today. When you listen to him talking about violence, what the problem of violence in the world, and how come are you going to solve violence? Are you going to use violence to solve violence? I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that could have been today. And that's also frightening when you listen to that, because you say, oh my God, world hasn't changed. And what would have thought Stanley Kubrick today? Probably the same thing. So I was very excited, and it was a great pleasure to really listen carefully to his words. And I not try, but I respected every single word, every single thought of Stanley Kubrick. Nothing was reorganized or whatever. So that was a very difficult exercise, because you know, again, I had to choose amongst 6-hour interviews. So yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely an intelligence when you listen to his voice that transcends time. You feel like you'd be listening to somebody elderly who's speaking today. You know, he seemed way ahead of his time, even when he was in his 30s and 40s. An old soul that would would come out of him and seem to understand history without time. Uh, for example, the opening of 2001 starts with apes 4 million years ago who are beating
Yeah.
each other up, basically the first murder. You know, thanks to a tool. And then showing, you know, where that tool has evolved to, which is killer satellites, which we seem to have today. And I saw
Yeah.
that you picked a very interesting clip to use about authority, and how Kubrick's talking about the you know, the struggle between the masses who are looking for more liberty, and the authority which is trying to hold on to structure, and his struggle to understand that. And I thought that was dead on for, you know, what we're going through worldwide today, especially in the
Absolutely.
United States, where,
Yeah.
you know, before the pandemic, there was a number of demonstrations against police brutality and
Yeah.
the state.
But we got a lot of that in France, also, a lot, and more and more and more and more. I think the pandemic is really it's very difficult, because it doesn't help. Yeah, there's more violence because of the pandemic. I mean, in the young generation, it's awful. Every day we have something here. Every day we hear about violence or murders, or young people who violence themselves, or the police. It's tough. Yeah, it's very tough, and it matches with Kubrick's thoughts.
Yeah, I think he struggled with that. It's a theme that you see in numerous films. It seems like war is something he visited quite often amongst all his themes. People say he never did the same film twice. That's true, but he visited war quite often. And
Quite often,
yeah,
yeah. He didn't do the same thing, the same film twice, but still, if you know well Stanley Kubrick and his themes, it was always about the same thing,
right.
about you know, is man a wolf for man? Actually, that's Kubrick's point, I think, in most of his films, most of
Mhm.
his films. Yeah.
Well, we should let the audience know. I don't know if we made it clear before, but you're joining us from France. So
Yes.
you're in Paris right now, and you're several hours ahead of me. I'm in Fort Lauderdale, which is the Florida theme behind me, with some Kubrick. And I think Kubrick was very interested in the French point of view of his films. I know he didn't quite always read everything, but he was definitely a fan of Michael Cimino. And can you speak? Do you think being French helped you make this documentary? Do you think it?
Yes, I think so, because when we Michel Simon agreed immediately in helping us, and then we had to go and see the Kubrick Trust based in London, because the trust had to ask them for permission to do another film of Stanley Kubrick. And at the beginning, it wasn't very easy because they weren't sure to agree. But Michel Simon helped, because Stanley Kubrick really he was very confident in Michel Simon. He liked the French culture. He liked the intellectuals, a lot. He liked the authors, French authors too. And from there on, well, we were permitted to do that movie because there was Michel Simon, because it was new for them, because we were using Kubrick's words, and they agreed. They agreed quite quickly, actually. So yes, it helped a lot.
Yeah, I was always amazed that Kubrick would keep files from reviews from different
Yeah,
countries. He was
yeah.
very, very analytical when it came down to seeing how his films were received, the box
He
office.
read. Oh yeah, he read everything. I've been. You've been at the archives of Stanley Kubrick in London, I think. Yeah, right.
Yep.
He read everything. He even had a box. A box named. He named it Hostiles with all the bad reviews he had, and he clipped it, and from every countries in the world, and sometimes he annotated it with his own words on the reviews, saying his comments. Said, yeah, he read everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think he was always very interested in what the French had to say. I think there is a
Yes. Yes.
where he's like, let's see what the French say about it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And you're right. You're right. And Michel Simon is the only person who interviewed him that long. So he's the only one. So yeah, it tells a lot.
Yeah, I think. Well, he was very close to France in his last days, obviously, but it is an interesting how just a short distance compared to America can make a big difference in the way of perception. And
Yes.
the French, I love French films. I think they are the masters of cinema. The French seem to take cinema to a different level, and I think you did too in this particular piece. Yeah, and
Okay.
maybe you could tell us, like, what would you tell people who want to make a documentary about Kubrick, based on your experience? There's people out there who are scholars; they're constantly looking at different angles. Maybe they're overanalyzing things, as you mentioned before. It's they're looking for things that might not be there, but maybe they are there. But then again, that's the gift of cinema. But what would you tell people?
People who are willing to make another, you mean a Kubrick documentary, or just a
Or just
documentary?
just looking to make or looking to scholar, or looking to follow in your footsteps with additional materials and things like that.
On
Do you have any
Kubrick.
advice? Yeah.
Uh, well, it's very difficult. I would say if you can access the London archives, that's the best way to do it, because you would probably find some ideas there, because there are so much to see and to read. You have all his scripts, you have all his notes, everything, all his research, and I bet that you can find other ideas there. But it's not easy to make another. I know there's another one, is another Kubrick documentary at the time. We're talking. I think it is. I think it's in production. I think it's on Eyes Wide Shut, probably. Uh, I don't know. It's difficult. It's very personal. I think you have all the material. You can access all the Kubrick material to have ideas. So that's my best advice. Really, is to maybe, if you can do it, if you're a scholar, particularly if you're a scholar, you can access easily the London School of Art, it's called, and but you have to spend a lot of time there.
Yes, you do.
like days and days and maybe weeks, yeah, to see everything, and to try to figure out, okay, how what story could I tell?
Yeah, as somebody went there, I only had a few days to peruse, and they only give you a few
Yeah,
hours in
yeah,
each
I
day.
know. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Had to go plenty of times over there because they close at 5 o'clock. So, so be careful. It's very long. It's a long
yeah,
process. But I mean, it's the way it is. I mean, it's Stanley Kubrick. You have to respect that, and it's a treasure to have in your hands Kubrick's scripts or original scripts and writing. You have a lot of thousands of Kubrick's writing there. It's amazing, amazing.
mm. Yeah. It's an endless maze of a genius mind,
We,
uh, and I think that's what happens. If you try to follow Einstein, or you try to follow Picasso, or any artist who is just on a genius level, you're going to be there probably the rest of your life. And I've seen
yeah,
people,
probably, yeah, probably.
and just trying to catch up and trying to touch, make that connection with your finger, like,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
and realize, it's he did a lot in his 70 years. We mourned his passing, which just about a week ago, that the 22nd anniversary of his death.
yeah,
And it feels like yesterday, but fortunately his films are with us, and they're some of the best films ever made. So if people are obsessed with the 20th century, all his films are made in that century, and we can get a snapshot of what he perceived and what he observed, without crossing over centuries, which is kind of interesting.
yeah.
One thing I wanted to say about your film is Kubrick used narration quite a bit in his films. Not every film had a narrator, but many did. And you choosing to have him narrate your film,
Yeah.
I thought was a great choice, because I think he would, if he was around, he would really get a thrill out of seeing that he's the narrator of this.
Well, I hope so.
I think
That's
he
my only regrets. I would have really liked to hear him, uh, just talking about. Okay, did you like the movie, Stanley? I don't know. He was very a private person, so I don't know. But the Kubrick Trust and his family really, really loved the movie.
Oh,
So
that's great.
I guess, yeah. So that's the best compliment. I really tried to do it to be as respectful as possible with his thoughts and his words. So yeah, he uses a lot of narration, and specifically in one of his first documentaries, because he did 3 documentaries. The Day of the Fight, it's in the movie. You have a short clip of it on the boxer, an American boxer, and that film is narrated almost like Barry Lyndon. It looks like a fiction narrative. It's incredible. If people get to see that movie, it's in black and white. It's a great film, a great documentary, shot like, my God, it was. You could see already Kubrick. The perfectionist, in the framings and the lightnings, in the ideas of the directing. But still, it's a documentary on boxing, and he did it as if he was telling his a story. Like, I compared it like Barry Lyndon, but when I saw it for the first time, I said, "Oh, it sounds like that a little bit." So he kept that. He was a photographer at the beginning. People shouldn't forget that he learned alone, and he learned with his own little camera, and he learned to frame the world and to have an eye and a viewpoint on the world and the things that he was seeing. And he kept that for his feature films, and he kept some of the documentary process, I would say, like the voiceover, in few of his films. So that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great point to make, and not too many cinematographers or filmmakers get to start off in the trenches of still photography. Definitely at the right place at the right time, starting off with Look magazine, and learning all those chops, and learning how to work fast, learning how to get that perfect still that would say 1,000 words. And
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
opinion, he translates that into cinematography, where almost every frame says 1,000 words. And when you're watching even a 90-minute, or, well, not, I don't think anything's that short, but the 2-hour length films that he makes, they're so dense, they might as well be unpacked
Yeah.
to hours and hours and hours, compared to the binge watching that we're doing today, where they do ask you to watch, 10 to 20 hours of film to make a point. But it is amazing that you pointed that out, and it's always interesting to me watching The Day to Fight. It's about twins.
Yeah.
There's a brother who's the manager, and there's the brother
Yeah,
who's the
absolutely.
boxer. And there's twins throughout all of Kubrick's films, or the double U, so to speak.
The double.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of doubles in his movies.
Yeah.
Kubrick himself is considered to be a double. He has a
Really?
double image. No. I mean, he's considered. He has a double image. I think so.
Yeah.
He would say the right opposite of someone else. So that's very intriguing. Yeah, he was aware of that. I think he was aware of that. I wouldn't say he suffered of it. That's probably the reason why he lived far away from Hollywood and from everything, because he wanted to live, simply. He really lived simply. He had a simple life, right?
He got what he wanted. He got that perfect setting to do his work.
Yeah.
It's just a shame he couldn't live longer to continue working, because
that's a question. Okay, what was next after Eyes Wide Shut? Well, we know a little bit of it because he had a few projects. So not the Napoleon, but he had a few projects. Yeah, he gave one to Spielberg. We know that with the AI. Probably would have been a different film with Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
Kubrick would probably have done not a happy ending.
Yeah.
That Michel Simon told me that. He said a lot of people compare Stanley Kubrick to Steven Spielberg, or Spielberg to Stanley Kubrick. Sorry, that way mostly, and he really don't agree with that. He said Kubrick would never do a happy ending if there's no reason to do a happy ending. Spielberg would most of the time do a happy ending, even if there's no way to do it, because that was his viewpoint as a filmmaker. That's a big difference. That's a big difference between both of them. Kubrick was probably really admired Spielberg in the technical aspect. Was very curious of everything in relation with the technique, the cameras, the new lightnings, the CGIs, everything. He was interested in that, and Spielberg was for him a very great example, and they really liked each other.
Yeah.
But the viewpoints on life is really rather different, and it's the most important thing in Kubrick's films. It's what does he tell us, in his films? So it's rather different.
It is different. The duality of man and
the
Jungian thing. Well, tell us what's next for you, Gregory. Where are you? What's next? I see that you're into Calamity Jane, but you've done a piece on her, and which I'm fascinated about. I visited Deadwood a while back, but what's next for you?
Well, I just finished a film on the Wild West show of Buffalo Bill. It's based on a Wild West show, but it's all in French. I'm sorry, because Buffalo Bill came in Europe 2 times to tour with his show everywhere, and especially in France. And he was there in 1889 and then in 1901, and he stayed like about a year in France. So he was all over across the country, and a lot of like more than 100 cities in France. So it's about his show and the impact and the importance of his show. The movie is around that more than around Buffalo Bills himself, because he was a visionary also. So it's very, very interesting. And then I have a film on Rosa Bonheur. Rosa Bonheur was a famous French painter. She was a painter from the 19th century, and she was very famous, and I bet she still is very famous in the United States today, because there's a lot of pieces of her work in the museums in the United States, especially at the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and we have one of her most famous paintings there. That was it. So these are the two ones on which I'm working at the time, and I have two others also, but it's not signed yet. So I don't want to talk about them because I'm a bit superstitious, and of course I still have one or two fictions projects of feature film that I want to do. But as you may know, we are encountering very difficult time, and it's difficult to make them produce. So I have them there aside of me, and I hope that one day I will be able to make a narrative fiction, because I started my career with by doing fiction with a lot of short films. I made 5 short films, and I've been an actor as well, but a long time ago. So I really I have a passion for fiction. So maybe people feel it in my documentaries that I have something, where I have something strong, and a strong feeling for narrative fiction.
Hmm. Well, I'm excited to learn more about you, and maybe one day we'll see the Napoleon movie made.
Oh no, not by me. No, I wouldn't. No.
But
Oh,
yeah,
I think so. It's in the works. It's in the works, but I'm not sure. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but I think it's in the works. Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking. I've been hearing about it for a long
Yeah,
time.
No, but I think they're doing it, or they're in the process. Yeah, maybe not the film. I think it's going to be a TV series probably. And Kubrick talks about it. I haven't put that interview in the film because it's too short. But he quit because he said it's impossible. It would have been a 10-hour film otherwise. And he mentions a TV series. He said it would be better to do it that way. It's too big. So
yeah, it'd be
maybe in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, if he lived in a Netflix age, maybe he could be making these long
Maybe.
films. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Well, Gregory, it's been a pleasure talking. Thank you so much. I hope we
Thank you.
talked about all the things you wanted to tell us about your amazing film, and listen to the master speak, and the images that you match with it, and the pacing and the flow, and the way your narrative edges around through it is just really enticing and mesmerizing. So I thank you for making it, and I'm sure everybody who's seen it and who will watch it in the future will learn a lot about Kubrick, which is a great way to understand his films better, or not, or at least keep the mystery alive. I think that was part of his plan, was to let you decide what you think it is, not necessarily tell you what it is, but give you enough to work with. Keep you up at night if you want to.
Yeah.
But we'll keep track of you. And if is there a place where people can find you online?
Online, no, but I have an email you can transfer me if people have questions or whatever. You can send them. You can send me their questions or their emails. Or I have a lot of emails addresses, so I will probably provide you one if people want to write to me. I'll be very pleased to converse with them.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's wonderful. I'm sure give that to the Miami Jewish Film Festival, and maybe they'll figure out what to do with it down in the text below. The interview. But thank you for your time, and thank you Miami Jewish Film Festival for bringing Kubrick by Kubrick to not only Miami and South Florida, but the world through our new way of communicating, which is all on television. Have a great rest of your day there in France and Paris, and I hope to visit again soon when this all, we can all get back to normal and things settle down. And keep up the great work. It really was wonderful. A nice treat for a Kubrick fan like myself, who's always learning something new. It really is something, and encourages me to go back to those tapes
All right.
and re-listen to them all. It takes a lot of time, but it's definitely worth it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. You enjoy your time and take care.